Okay. Hi, Bob. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Doing fine. Thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. Nice to have you here. I was reading through your bio. I know you have a book to promote. Tell us exactly what you do other than write this book.
We started publishing books on herpetology over 20 years ago. I run a series of trade shows around the country, the largest in the world, the North American Reptile Breeders Conference and trade shows. We also have a desert museum and an Apache museum out here in Rodeo, New Mexico, and we're just in the process of finalizing the construction on the Library of Herpetology. So those are the main things that I do. I'm also on several nonprofit boards like SSAR, the Society for the Study of Amphibians and Reptiles, and also the International Herpetological Symposium. So I've kind of got my fingers into a lot of different things, mostly all reptiles. So yeah, it keeps me pretty busy.
So, all things reptiles. So, are you a reptile keeper? Do you have snakes in?
We do. We are basically the Desert Museum is a living museum, and we have several hundred reptiles on exhibit here. We have a big botanical garden with lots of birds and stuff that can kind of come and go. So you can go there and see a lot of birds, but you can see Gila monsters and tortoises and things breeding and out in the gardens. And we breed a lot of rare montane species of rattlesnakes as well. But I don't take care of them. I have in the past, but I have a curator that deals with all that.
What got you into reptiles?
Boy, my mom probably asked that question more than anybody, because when I was growing up as a kid, we had a lot of. I had anything from little rattlesnakes in the house to everything else growing up in Michigan. So, I caught toads when I was like 8 years old and never grew out of it. Always been just fascinated with anything reptile, all animals in general for sure, but really focused on reptiles. So I've always had a reptile or something growing up and traveled all over the world. Luckily, I've been able to do that to see animals, whether I'm in Indonesia or Australia or Africa or Europe. I travel everywhere to see these things in the wild. And the nice thing about with what I do is we're taking a lot of images, and most of our travel is, tax deductible because everything I do is related to my business. So that's been a big help.
Do you know Jeff Corwin?
I don't know Jeff Corwin. I was actually on a plane one time when I heard he was on the plane, but I've never met him. I've met I know Steve Irwin and Nigel Marvin. I've helped him do a reptile film before, and Mark O'Shea's a good friend of mine. He did O'Shea's Big Adventure, so I do a lot of stuff with a lot of some of these guys, and we've done stuff with Earth Touch out of South Africa and Nat Geo. And most of the time, I'm the guy working behind the camera, and they'll hire some of our people here to basically have the permits and have the animals, and they have their celebrities and stuff that do everything. So we and our staff will do some of the animal stuff behind scenes, basically wrangling some of the animals.
I just remember him from the 90s, I think, or the early 2000s on Animal Planet. I don't know if he was
Yeah,
still doing that or not.
I don't. He's not doing those, but he does. He became more of a celebrity when he. I think he was named the 50 most beautiful people in the world or of the year from People magazine years ago, and I see him on TV every now and then doing some kind of an animal related thing, but he's more of the online the go to for some different weird animal facts and stuff. It seems, but we don't travel in the same circles.
Okay. So I guess I have to ask, have you ever been bitten by a poisonous snake?
Yeah, and basically, anytime you've been bit by a venomous snake, it's 100% your fault. And I'd been dealing with venomous snakes for about 30 years, and I had a couple of good friends of mine that were top reptile vets, and they were at my house the night before telling me stories of both of them getting bitten. And I thought, well, you're going to jinx me because I had these six little baby Willard-Silas, which is a little Chihuahuan Originals rattlesnake, which my curator at the time, they were born and didn't know that, and their skins when they're first born, they have to shed within the first 3 or 4 days typically. And because they were in a dry substrate, that skin kind of crinkled up on it. It was really dried. And basically, they would have died if we couldn't get the skin off of them. Well, these animals are probably 5 inches long. So I had to go there and basically get them moist, use a little bit of olive oil, and I kind of moisten them. And I got the skin off of five of them. And the sixth one was a little pistol. It actually turned around and bit me. It's hard to, when you're handling a snake that small, you can't really use equipment or anything. It bit me in one finger. Then I continued to get the rest of the skin off of it, and it bit me on another finger, which is stupid. Now these are pretty mild. It's a very small animal. and a very mild toxin. So I didn't end up going to the hospital. I dealt with it, and I had some bruising in my lymph nodes on my arm. My fingers probably swelled up about 80% larger, the two fingers, and after about 5 or 6 weeks, it kind of went back, and I was back to normal. So that was my first bite. In my second bite, we were actually sexing a baby Tamaleaf and rock rattlesnake, and again, trying to rush. I was trying to sex the animal, and I got tagged on one of my finger, on my thumb actually, and that particular snake's a little bit more potent, and I did go to the hospital for that, and I did get some antivenom for that bite. So, but again, no lasting damage to me other than my ego a little bit. So,
is the larger the snake, the more venom it will inject when it bites you?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that people talk about, like baby snakes, they say can't control their venom. So you're better to get bit by a baby snake than an adult snake. And an adult snake, of course, may have 20 times more venom as far as venom yield they can put into your body. So if I ever had a choice, it'd always be to be bit by a baby snake because they have very little venom, whereas a large snake could give you a lot of venom. And of course, you'd have a lot worse reaction. I have a lot of respect for what venomous snakes can do from being bit by a snake that weighs not much more than a 50-cent piece. So thinking of an animal that weighs a couple of pounds could do some serious damage.
What is the most venomous snake on the planet?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to do this. We've looked at that, and the most toxic, if you look at LD50, which is lethal doses per 50 for a mouse when they're doing the treatments for that, and the way a mouse reacts versus a human is completely different. And the different localities, the different animals from where that venom is taken. But the fear snake from Australia, the inland taipan, is credited with being the most toxic venom when it goes to that category. We're talking about lethal doses per 50. So LD50 rating on that snake is much higher than anywhere else, anything else. Then you go down to where you've got the eastern taipan in Australia. You've got snakes like the death adder, the tiger snakes. Those are all in the top like 5 animals, but the snakes that kill the most people, the 3 top ones, and a lot of it's because they're found near third world, high populated areas where there's just not good medical treatment. And that's the saw-scaled viper, the Russell's viper, and the Indian cobra. Those 3 animals they're all neurotoxic, but they kill tens of thousands of people per year.
Okay, well, let's pivot over to your book because we've got about 5 minutes. A photographic history of snakebite treatments. So it's kind of a good segue from what we were just talking about. See, snake oil, potions, elixirs, and kits. Now, is this is the real stuff in terms of these were actual treatments for snakebite?
Oh yeah, these were actual treatments for snakebite. In fact, a lot of these, not a lot of these, but several of these, like the cutter snakebite kits and so on, there's some places you can go to hardware stores or outfitter stores and still buy snakebite kits and different treatments. And none of them work at all, and none of them have ever worked. So I started collecting these, which I write about in the book, and why a good friend of mine in Australia, I started collecting kits to bring to him as gifts. And then I kind of got hooked and ended up buying lots of different collections and kits and acquiring the collection that I have. But none of these kits that they sold commercially worked, just like the snake oils that they sold. I mean, these were just hokum. So the kits that you can buy right now at your local hardware store don't do anything at all. It's just a waste of $10 or whatever you have to pay for it. So the only really treatment for snakebite is to call 911 and go to the hospital and get an antivenom, inject for you. Now there are new treatments. There's a new inhibitor they're working on right now, and it really works well with with neurotoxic snakebite. And this will do a lot to save lives in the third world, especially because they can have a pill that you can take orally, and it'll basically take those effects, that snakebite, and put them off for a long period of time, and long enough to get to the hospital and get actually antivenom on board. So that'll be an important thing. It's going through FDA trials right now, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll have that as a potential treatment, a brand new treatment for snakebite.
Are snakes, is the antivenom kits for specific snakes? In other words, like the one for the rattlesnake won't work if you're bitten by a cobra?
Yes. So like the nice thing about here in this country, there's a couple different ones. There's Crofab, which is used for the crotalus, which is rattlesnakes. That'll work on all copperheads, cottonmouths, and rattlesnakes that are here. And then there's Antivenom, which came out, which is similar, and that's more modern and is up to date, and they'll take care of all those animals perfectly fine. So basically, every venomous snake in the United States, it covers, except for the coral snake, which is a neurotoxic snake. So, but you need to have an antivenom that works for that particular animal. Like, for example, Russell's vipers. They had an antivenom that was developed from animals from India, and it worked very well. Well, the people in Sri Lanka that actually were getting bit and they were using the same antivenom did not work as well. So David Worrell, who's a good friend of mine, Sir David Worrell, he actually worked with Mark O'Shea from O'Shea's Big Adventure. And these guys worked together, and we helped to do some fundraising to help to develop a Sri Lankan antivenom for Russell's vipers. So even though they're the same snake, they're isolated, so genetically they're slightly different, and their venom was quite a bit different. So even though it's the same snake, there was two completely different antivenoms for that animal. So it's really has to be focused on that particular location.
So is this book sort of designed to show you the ridiculous things that people used in the past? And
yeah, I think this is really showing kind of like almost in a carnival atmosphere of what we used to do, going all the way back to the snake oil salesmen, and you see they go around with their carts selling all their different elixirs and snake oils for all kinds of different maladies, and for the most part, none of them worked, so this is basically just taking that and focusing it on venomous snakebite. So because I had this collection, a good friend of mine, Gordon Schuett, he's our science director here at the museum, told me, I've got all these crazy eclectic things. We should do some kind of a book on it because people would like to see it. So it's kind of like a small coffee table book that is illustrated. And another good friend of mine, Tim Lawson, took all the photography of all these different kits just to really showcase how crazy some of the stuff is. And some of these things have strychnine in them and things that are really bad for you, And the snakebite kit would actually add harm to something that already happened to you, a lot of them.
Just from what I can remember in films, you get a snake bite, you cut it, and you suck it and spit it out. Does that work?
Not at all.
Okay.
Because your heart is beating so fast, boom, 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 boom. The time a snake bites you, the time you cut it, that venom's already moving throughout your system. So you're going to get such a little amount out, it's not going to really have any effect at all.
So the whole suck out the poison, that just doesn't do it, no?
No, unfortunately. Unfortunately, it does not.
Okay. All right, Bob. Well, I think on that, we're going to have to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming out on the show. Is the book out? Has it been released?
The book is out. It's available on Amazon. You can also buy it at ecouniverse.com. Of course, you can buy it at a lot of different bookstores around the Southwest and at the Chiricahua Des Museum.
Okay. Last question. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure. Well, we have the website for the museum, the Chiricahua, and that's spelled Chiricahua, Chiricahua, phonetically. So you could go there, and then, of course, our publishing company, ecouniverse.com, you can see all kinds of different books on herpetology and Apaches and other things that we publish on.
Okay. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you, and best of luck.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Nice meeting you.